As joints get older, they start making more noise, creaks, pops, groans, and not just metaphorically. For millions of aging adults, arthritis is one of the most common, painful reminders that the body isn't exactly the well-oiled machine it used to be. By the time we hit our 60s and 70s, nearly half of us will have osteoarthritis in at least one joint, and autoimmune types like rheumatoid arthritis aren't far behind. But what if your knees aren't just a genetic time bomb or the result of one too many enthusiastic pickup basketball games? What if what you've been eating all along has been slowly either fueling or fighting your future arthritis? That's the central question behind the emerging science on anti-inflammatory diets, including the empirical dietary inflammatory pattern, or EDIP, which ranks foods by their ability to stoke or calm systemic inflammation. This isn't just another food trend with a fancy acronym. It's a growing field of research tying chronic low-grade inflammation, especially the kind driven by poor diet, to the breakdown of joints, tissues, and immune regulation over time. In other words, arthritis may not just be about age. It may be about how you age and what you're eating along the way. Let's start with the basics. The EDIP score, developed using data from large cohorts like the Nurses' Health Study, assigns values to foods based on how strongly they predict levels of inflammatory markers in the blood, such as C-reactive protein, CRP, interleukin-6, IL-6, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, TNFA. Spoiler alert! Foods like processed meats, refined grains, sugar-sweetened beverages, and fried snacks all drive the score in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, leafy greens, tomatoes, fatty fish, coffee, tea, and whole fruits tend to lower systemic inflammation. That means your morning donut might not just make your blood sugar spike. It could also be whispering evil plans to your immune system. But why does this matter for arthritis? Because inflammation is both a cause and a consequence of joint degeneration. In osteoarthritis, OA, what begins as mechanical wear and tear eventually becomes an inflammatory process, as damaged cartilage releases molecules that attract immune cells to the scene. In rheumatoid arthritis, RA, and other autoimmune conditions, inflammation is the instigator, turning the immune system into an overzealous demolition crew targeting joints from the inside. Either way, inflammation feeds the fire, and diet has an uncanny ability to either fan the flames or smother them. Several longitudinal studies are now showing that people who follow lower EDIP diets, meaning they eat more anti-inflammatory foods and fewer pro-inflammatory ones, have significantly lower risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis. One study, for instance, found that women with the highest inflammatory dietary scores were over 40% more likely to develop RA over time, particularly if they also smoked or had a genetic predisposition. And while the data for OA is less dramatic, emerging research suggests that anti-inflammatory diets may slow the progression of cartilage loss and reduce joint pain in already diagnosed individuals. And it's not just the EDIP. Other dietary patterns, like the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, or plant-based whole food diets, also rank high in anti-inflammatory potential and show similar promise for protecting aging joints. Randomized trials have found that older adults with osteoarthritis who switched to a Mediterranean-style diet reported reduced knee pain and better mobility within just 12 weeks. One study even found structural benefits on imaging, less joint space narrowing in people adhering closely to anti-inflammatory diets over time. That's right, broccoli might not rebuild cartilage, but it sure can help preserve what's left. There's also strong evidence linking dietary inflammation with autoimmune aging more broadly. As we age, the immune system undergoes a shift known as immunosenescence, a state of chronic, low-grade activation that leaves us more vulnerable to infection, less responsive to vaccines, and more prone to diseases like RA and lupus. Diets rich in anti-inflammatory nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids from fatty fish, polyphenol from berries and green tea, and flavonoids from citrus, onions, and cocoa seem to help modulate this immune drift, keeping the system better regulated and less likely to spiral into self-attack mode. Of course, no one's saying that salad alone will prevent arthritis or cure autoimmune disease. Genetics, environmental exposures, injury history, and lifestyle all play a role. But food is one of the few levers you can pull every single day, multiple times a day, that shapes your inflammatory landscape. And unlike prescription anti-inflammatories, an apple or a bowl of lentil soup doesn't come with a list of terrifying side effects. The best part? Anti-inflammatory eating isn't punitive. It doesn't demand perfection or kale smoothies with names you can't pronounce. It means eating more plants, choosing whole grains, using olive oil instead of margarine, snacking on nuts instead of chips, and replacing soda with tea or water. It means saying yes to salmon and no thanks to processed lunch meat. And it means being kind to your microbiome too, since gut inflammation often drives joint inflammation, and fiber-rich, polyphenol-packed foods keep those gut microbes humming along in an anti-inflammatory rhythm. So, is an anti-inflammatory diet the key to aging without arthritis? It's not a silver bullet, but it's a pretty convincing piece of the puzzle. If nothing else, it tilts the odds in your favor, helping your joints age more like a well-maintained hinge and less like a rusted-out door. You may not dodge arthritis entirely, but you might delay it, soften its blow, and keep yourself moving better, longer. And if you're lucky, one day you'll be the only person in your social circle who can still squat, stretch, and get up from a beanbag chair without assistance. All thanks to a little daily diplomacy with your immune system, and maybe a lot of lentils.